Ladies and gentlemen,
Let's go.
it gives me great pleasure to announce the return of this famous attraction,
Yeah.
featuring a sight of a life.
Wow, that was crazy. That was not supposed to happen. Conor McGregor getting TKO'd by Dustin Poirier, UFC 257. Were you as surprised as I was? I was and I wasn't. So going into the fight, wasn't sure what was going to happen. Conor has that mental edge because he won the first fight. When you beat someone one time, you know you could do it again, and that had to be in the back of Dustin's head. It was something that I said before. I didn't see too many ways that Dustin would be able to overcome Conor McGregor, but he did. He started hitting that calf early on. Conor started showing the wear and tear of it towards the end of that first round. In second round, I think Conor tried the same strategy. He tried to stand up, just box with him, and he was still getting his leg. It was getting eaten up. He wasn't checking the leg kick, and he was just trying to get in a brawl with Dustin. And Dustin, he said it in his post-fight interview that he's been known to get into brawls and not fight technically, but he decided that he wanted to keep it a technical fight because he didn't want to get himself into some trouble. And it paid off for him. He kept at that leg, then he hurt him with a right hand and a left, and Conor was rocked. And at that point, you could see it in his face that Conor wasn't all the way there. I think he was there, but maybe, Khabib said this before, Conor has a tendency to quit. He has a tendency to give up. We saw this in the Nate Diaz fight when Nate took his back, kind of let him sink in the rear naked choke after he got rocked and beaten up a little bit by Nate and didn't try to defend. Khabib, at some point in that, after the third round, fourth round comes around, Conor gets tired, his will starts to come down, and Khabib was able to finish him. Dustin was not the same exact thing, but when he was hurt, I saw that wasn't the same Conor if he would have gotten rocked a few years before. What do I mean by that? Well, look at the money. I know people are tweeting about it, and they're saying, oh, he made $100 million versus Floyd. That probably has a little bit to do with it. That has a lot to do with it. I've talked to former world champions who made millions of dollars. One of them is Ray Boom Boom Mancini. And he said, if you're a prize fighter and can't get up at 5 o'clock in the morning because you just don't want to go in that run, then maybe you shouldn't be fighting. And I'm not saying Conor is that person that doesn't go in the 5 o'clock run in the morning. But when you're taken care of for the rest of your life, you made $100 million at least in earnings, plus his proper 12 is doing really well. What's the motivation for fighting? Conor said one of his motivations is he likes it. He enjoys it. He enjoys the competition. But fighting is not a sport. I hate to say that. It's not. It's fighting. There's a fight going on. I'm trying to hurt you, and I'll score points along the way, but I'm really trying to finish you by any means necessary. A knockout. Tactical knockout, submission, breaking something, putting you unconscious. It's not just competing. And I think Conor McGregor took it as that approach. I'm just competing. I'm going to be friendly with everyone. I'm friendly with Poirier. I'm friendly with the staff. I'm friendly. That doesn't work because didn't work for Conor before. He wasn't into fight mode. He thought he was going to go out there and compete, beat Dustin as many people thought he would, and be over with. But when there's so much writing and you have a family, he has 2 children, one on the way. When you have that money in the bank, the motivations start to go down a little by little until you get to this point where Conor said it's ring rust, and someone said he'd been off for 2 years. It's only been a year. It hasn't been off for 2 years. Someone said, well, if no fighter can get in there and ring with taking that long time of a layoff, it's not true. Look at Nate Diaz. He's came in, he stepped up after taking a year off and able to win. Right? There's different when you're having that amount of success and money. Money changes people. Not everyone, but it changes a lot of people. And to not be wary of that and to understand that, then those that think that way aren't really thinking all the way. I mean, Dustin's still Dustin. To me, he wasn't better. He wasn't worse. I mean, that's the Poirier that we always have seen. He got stunned a few times in that first round. He looked a little bit hurt and rocked. Conor didn't really pursue it, and he was able to weather the storm. Dustin's tough. He's from the South, Louisiana, Lafayette, as DC kept on saying, their hometown. Tough. He's not going to just give up. You're going to have to make him give up. You're going to have to make Dustin want to lose that fight. And there was a couple times where Dustin looked like, okay, he didn't want to, not that he didn't want to be there, but he was just hurt. And when you see that side of Dustin, it's like, okay, it's coming where this could go south for Dustin. But Conor didn't push it on him. He didn't push the pace. He didn't push the pressure. You try to box with him, and he did have pockets of success. He connected with some good shots with Dustin. Not the clear-cut, hard punches that we're used to seeing Conor connect with. And had he landed with one of those, would have been differently. We don't know, but some of those shots did catch him. And if that left, there was a couple times where he caught him, but it was at the end of his punch. But there was nothing solid. There was a good right hand that Conor threw that stunned Dustin as well. But as we look back at what Conor has done and who he's become, and now it's kind of this fight week was a lot different. He was kind of like a nice guy. We're not used to seeing a nice guy. And if he wants to keep fighting, if he wants to keep competing, that nice guy is not going to get it done for Conor. Some people can do it. I mean, look at Andre Ward in boxing. He's a really nice guy, very respectful. Dog once he gets into the ring. But that's who he is. That's his demeanor. That's never been Conor's M.O. His M.O. wasn't, hey, let me get some of your Louisiana hot sauce. I'll give you some proper 12. Let's take a picture after we face off. It's just, that's not who he is or was as a fighter. And I don't know if he can get that back. A lot of fighters talk about this fire, the fire they have inside. And when we see fighters take long layoffs or they don't do well or they're getting older and they're on a losing streak, that they say, okay, I got that fire back, and they'll bounce back with a few wins. I don't think it's the same fire that they had when they were in their 20s or teens or even early 30s, right, where they have that itch to that I'm coming from where I'm from and I want to make this work by any means necessary. I'm not sure what he's going to say post-conference. Many people are watching that, what Conor's going to say. But that fire or the rust, I mean, at this point, what does he need to fight for? The fight with Manny Pacquiao, a boxing match with him, that's done. After getting TKO'd by Dustin Poirier, you're not fighting Manny Pacquiao. I don't see it happening because he's been damaged goods. It was okay for him to get choked out by Khabib. It was okay for him to get choked out by Nate. It was okay for him to get TKO'd by Floyd. But getting TKO'd by Dustin Poirier to segue into boxing, I don't think that's a really good look for him. So I think that Pacquiao fight is off the table. I don't see that happening. And in addition to that is what's next for him. I mean, he can just stay a businessman and cruise off into the wind. That would be probably ideal for him. I mean, I know he was a fighter. I know he wants to keep going, but like, he's done what most fighters can't do. When I say most, I mean 99.99999%. They can't be that age, 33, and retire. He could have retired 2 years ago. He technically didn't need this Poirier fight. He didn't need the Cowboy Cerrone fight. I mean, the Floyd fight really put him into a whole nother bracket, a whole nother echelon. And he's not as flamboyant as Floyd. I mean, to some degree, yes, but the expenses, I don't see him having 100 different Rolls Royces and Bentleys and Ferraris. I mean, he has his toys, but not to the degree Mayweather spends his money, or Mayweather needs to fight. Not that he needs to, but to keep that lifestyle. He needs to throw on these exhibition matches with a Logan Paul coming up as well, right? There's these things that Floyd has, and I don't think Conor has the same cost that Floyd has. So technically he can retire, and not only that, but the proper 12, that proper 12 has probably made him more money than or equal to the money he made in the UFC. Maybe not as much as the Mayweather fight, but I would venture to say that from what the numbers sound like, that proper 12 has made him just the amount of money that he's made in his career in the UFC, which wouldn't surprise me if he's made more than that with proper 12. The amount of bottles that they're moving and the markups and price, like that's something not to be underestimated as well. So what's next for Poirier? What's next for Conor? I just outlined it. Maybe I know he's going to probably compete again. I know he's going to probably fight again. I just don't see the reasoning. I don't like why. He doesn't seem like he's there. As for Poirier, well, we don't want to see. I don't think the fans want to see him and Khabib again. It's going to go the same way. Dustin's Dustin. He's still solid fighter, going to be the same person. What intrigues me is Dustin Poirier versus Nate Diaz. I mean, now that Poirier beat McGregor in a TKO fashion, those two going at it, especially if Masvidal's going to fight Colby Covington, then that would put Nate and Jorge not in a fight together. So him and Poirier just make perfect sense. And depending on what happens to that, I mean, this is wishful thinking. I'd like to see Nate and Khabib. I know people will call me biased. People will call me non-objective. I think Nate has the best chance out of anybody in the UFC. I think as in that division, right? Maybe GSP as well, because GSP's wrestling could mitigate Khabib's at that weight. But Nate's jiu-jitsu is like high-level jiu-jitsu. And then you got Khabib sambo and wrestling. And Nate's stand-up. I mean, that's an interesting fight that I like to see. I don't think we'll ever see that. But that's what I think should be next. Poirier versus Nate. Conor, maybe he takes, who knows what Conor can do what he wants to do.